Welcome to First Flight High School for this month's Board of Education meeting. The mission of the Dare County Board of Education is to support the students and staff by providing the necessary resources and support to ensure that every student is successful. Dare County Schools strive to empower every student to be an innovative problem solver, an engaged global citizen. Together, we are building extraordinary schools.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is April 13th, 2021. We are at First Flight High School for the meeting of the Board of Education. The time is 5:02. First, we'll take a moment of silence. Thank you. And now we will have our welcome and pledge by Carl Woody.
Thank you. Since this is my first time doing the welcoming pledge, I would like to thank everybody that's here, that's in the audience, and also watching online. I'd also like to thank all those members that voted for me in the last election. I'm here to represent District 1 and all the students and family throughout the town. Throughout the county. With that, let's go with the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Woody. Before we get started, I do have a statement to read before we approve the agenda. We've received a request to amend the board agenda for the following reasons. First, to revise the personnel consent agenda under agenda item 9A, to add the following items to the consent agenda: the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Grant and the 2020-2021 Summer Accountability Program Plan. And third, to add a new agenda item, 10B, School Extension Learning, Recovery, and Enrichment Programs, under Agenda 10, Reports and Items for Information. If anyone has
Madam
any
Chair.
questions. Any questions?
No,
No?
I hope not.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I move we amend the agenda for the reasons requested.
I have a motion to amend the agenda by Mr.
Second.
Tauber.
Second.
A second by Susan. Any discussion?
Would you mind repeating those items that were added?
I'm sorry?
Oh, you've got them. Never mind, thanks.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, motion carries. Oh. Next up, I'll take the approval of the amended agenda.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the amended agenda.
I have a motion by Ms. Lawler,
A second?
second by Mr. Hester. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We have an agenda. Next up, we have announcements. Dr. Farley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of announcements. This is the time of year where our schools, was I a little loud, Ms. Bothwell? I always am. My staff back there is giving me the high five on that. This is the time of year where our schools select the Teacher of the Year. So this is an exciting time as we recognized our most effective teachers in Dare County, and Ms. Kinzel's leading the process with our schools who submit the Teacher of the Year nominations in the next couple of weeks. And so April 26th is the target date for us to make that announcement. We're also in the process of identifying our Principal of the Year. All of our administrators get an opportunity to weigh in and vote and give us input on that process. And then we also recognize our Classified Employees of the Year at each school. So those announcements will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. And Sandy is trying to arrange an event where we could do something outside where we could still recognize everyone. As you know, last year we were not able to do that. And so we'll get that information out as soon as possible. So It's always exciting when you go to a school and you announce the Teacher of the Year and see the tears in people's eyes, and there's no greater recognition than from your peers. So some good things coming next couple of weeks. A couple other announcements. So with the board's approval of the move to Plan A in grades 6 through 12 at the April 1st board meeting, we have followed through following statute, where we have contacted the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services and sent a mini application in, or a notification that we're moving to Plan A. And we've also been in contact with again, following statute, with the ABC Collaborative out of Duke University. So following that law that was passed, we have to collaborate with ABC on data collection for students and staff in grades 6 through 12 related to COVID and the number of positive cases in quarantine and so on. So once we get some more information that comes down with the specific requirements, we'll get that out to the board. And then lastly, with the move to Plan A, as you know, we opened up a registration process for students in grades 6 through 12, and the numbers are moving by the hour. When we closed our initial registration, we had about 90 students in grades 6 through 12 whose parents registered for them to come back to face-to-face. That is moving constantly. We had several parents who just in the last week have opted back in, and then we do have some movement going from face-to-face to virtual. So I expect that to continue. The good news is you walk through classrooms today, and we've got buildings that we've got a lot of kids back, and kids are excited to be back, and teachers are excited to be able to teach more than 8 or 10 kids. And so we're looking forward to productive times over the next 2 months. I think we will still see movement going back and forth, particularly if there is potential, hopefully not, but if there is potential for some quarantine cases to jump. We currently, as you know, throughout this school year, have had to offer the virtual option and keep that open the entire time. We are going to study over the next week to see if our trends continue with movement. It's not good every time someone jumps back and forth from an instructional delivery standpoint. We may want to consider, and we're thinking on maybe a proposal in our May board meeting. We meet again on May 11th to come up with some kind of a May 15th or May 20th deadline. And that's primarily because we've got to get the wheels in motion for end of grade and of course, testing. So we're not currently doing that, and we are following the state mandates, but we may have to consider some kind of a deadline upcoming following the May 11th meeting. So more to come with that. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Farley. I'm very excited to hear the results from the principal and the teachers of the year. They're always very exciting. I miss our celebrations, so hopefully we can get that back on track. Okay, next up we have Keith Parker for recognitions. Dr. Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Tonight, we are very excited to recognize some of the outstanding staff at Manteo Middle School, and we also are going to feature Manteo Middle School in our instructional highlights this evening. And so we do have here with us Principal Tammy Harper and Assistant Principal Shannon Castillo. So we would like to now ask Principal Harper to come forward and share some of her staff recognitions.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Farley, and members of the board. Thank you for having me here this evening. First, I would like to recognize our staff. They have been truly amazing through this entire year. They have faced every challenge this year head on and have gone above and beyond every time we ask, so I want to thank them for their superior work and thank Dr. Castillo for her partnership, because I couldn't have got through it without her. She's amazing. First of all, as far as our staff go, we'd like to recognize our Teacher of the Year, Ms. Stevie Gallup. Ms. Gallup has taught math at Manteo Middle School for 4 years. Unfortunately, her recognition happened this year, and this has not been the most convenient time, but true to form, Ms. Gallup has represented the best that Dare County teachers have to offer. Her performance and attitude through this year has been inspiring. I have really enjoyed getting to know Ms. Gallup over the last 2 years, and the one takeaway I would have to share about this teacher is that she does not see teaching as an occupation. To her, it's a calling. She's very kind, respectful, engaging, funny, and a relationship builder. She's loved by staff and students alike, and she's one that teachers and staff would go to for feedback or just to hear an honest, input or criticism, and they take it really well from her, including myself from time to time. I have reached out to her. I would predict that Ms. Gallup will sometime in the near future be in a leadership position because she has those true qualities of a leader. So we're very proud of her, and I thank her for her service. Next, I'd like to recognize Ms. Kimberly Dixon. Ms. Dixon teaches science, 7th grade science at our school. She's been there for 3 years, and she has achieved national board certification, so we want to congratulate her. That is not an easy accomplishment, and she did a really good job with that. We also have several teachers. Our teachers at Mania Middle School are grant writers. If they see an opportunity to bring something good to the school, they'll take advantage of it. So we had some interesting grants this year. First, Kim Dixon and Carrie Hausnick wrote Exploring the World Through Lenses. This was a grant that was probably more inspired by our situation with virtual learning. This grant provided a swift digital microscope to each of our science teachers that enabled us to connect both virtual and in-person students so they can experience what we are seeing in the microscope at the same time at home and in the classroom. This will be highlighted in our video in a little bit. Ms. Carrie Hausnick and Mr. Brian Wayner, our IT guy, received a grant for exploring evidence and fun with forensics, and you'll see in a little bit when we highlight our update our Gaddy Foundation donation, what we do with our library, and so they have a workspace area, and so this grant, working with forensics, these kits will provide the students at MMS an amazing opportunity to engage them in hypothetical crime scenes in which they'll have to use inquiry, observation, and a variety of science skills and tests in order to solve the crime or whatever the puzzle is. And last, Mr. Ted Mitchell, he received a grant for $2,000 for a disc golf course. I just learned what that is this year, pretty amazing, and apparently we have one at the North End of Manio that I did not even know existed, but it's a thing. Dr. Mitchell is an avid disc golf course guy, and he worked with Spencer Gregory to walk. Spencer Gregory helped design the course in Manio, and he walked our property and is very excited because we have, if you've ever explored Manio Middle School, our campus is probably the prettiest campus. And so there's a lot of water and a lot of trees, and it's just going to be beautiful when he's done. So we thank Dr. Ted Mitchell for that because this is something PE is going to integrate, and we're going to have clubs as well once we can get that going. I do want to recognize a couple of our students at MMS. They were district TSA winners. First place for Off the Grid was Gage Waston, and then there's 2 honorable mentions, that's Charlotte Miller and Francesca Mueller. Thank you.
Thank you. Sounds like you have some excitement going on. Next, we have instructional highlights. Dr. Parker?
Thank you again, Madam Chairman. I would say a couple of things before Ms. Harper comes back up and shares some of her instructional highlight presentation. But this year is with all of our schools, but the staff at Manio Middle School have risen to the challenge, I think, this year, and they have really been very innovative in how they have structured their teaching and learning to meet students. And Ms. Harper is going to share with you some of the things that her staff has done to just address the challenges of this year. And she has a video and a presentation she's going to share. But I'm really thankful of the dedication of Ms. Harper and Dr. Castillo because whatever has come along this year, they have been problem solvers and they have found solutions to overcome obstacles. And, that's really a mark of a great leader, is somebody who takes the hand you've been dealt and then finds ways to do the best for kids. And so you'll see some of that tonight in some of the strategies that she's going to highlight. But as you go into her building now, you can tell that students have been engaged throughout the year. And despite what we've seen and what we've had to deal with the COVID pandemic, learning continued in some really creative ways, and I think her staff and students are going to be better for it. So we hope to share with you some of those successes tonight and highlight some of the work that's going on at that school. And so with that introduction, I'd like to ask Ms. Harper to come back and give us an update on the Gaddy Grant and show you some photos of the work that's going on in the library. And that work was funded through the Gaddy Grant. You're going to really see some of the beautiful furniture that we've been able to install in the library, and then Ms. Harper's going to share some of the strategies that her teachers have used. So we're looking forward to sharing that with you tonight. Ms. Harper? And then this will, that right there will take your presentation on.
Okay. Thank you again for having me this evening. The first thing I feel we need to do is update you on the Gaddy Foundation donation. It was $100,000. And we wanted to act on that quickly so that, we could put that into motion. And we wanted to make sure some of these things were in place when the students came back into the building. And one particular is the library. If you recall, we had some pretty older, antiquated furniture. And so we wanted the library to be the hub of the building to really draw kids back into the books and then, being interactive. So the first slides you'll see, if I can, do you have to aim it? Okay. This is a treat. We have lots of artists in a lot of unique places. And Mr. Joe Evanoff, who's been a custodian probably about 12 years at Mania Middle School, also has a secret talent for stained glass. Mr. Gaddy is... Thank you. Mr. Gaddy is the owner of the Qualifier, which is a boat out of Oregon Inlet, and fishing is very much part of his life and his family's life. So we wanted to capture something to recognize him for his contribution, and Mr. Evanoff made this and donated it, and it sits and rests above the library. So when you walk in, the light hits, it's beautiful. The fish you can't really even... This is not doing it justice, but we just want to thank Mr. Evanoff because it took him about a month to make that by hand. And one weekend I came in to do some work, and he had installed it on a Saturday. I just went in and it was there. So it's magic. So we just thank him. Is it me back again, Ms. Dr. Parker? There we go. Our library, we tried to make it interactive. We want to engage students and be able to do small groups, to bring STEM projects in there, also to encourage kids to go in there and just to read, to find a workspace. And so the first thing you see here, we have 4 pods of tables, and all of these tables separate. So you can either have individuals, or you can put them, the way they're designed, you can put them in 2, 3, or as you can see, in 6. They're very comfortable, they're movable, and this is some casual workspaces for students. The wood table you see there, students can plug in their USB, they can plug in electricity and work their Chromebooks, or just sit there and read. This space in the middle with the long couch has 2 tables on either side, so again, it's a casual area so students can be comfortable and work. It's going backwards, Dr. Parker. I'm usually pretty good with technology. This one has stomped me. I apologize. There we go. There's another workspace. We have these black leather chairs with desks sitting in the sun so they can sit and work individually. We also have these diner-type style tables where kids can work in stations. It just blacked it out. All right, there we go. This is our makerspace in the back left of our room, and this is where we have STEM projects, 3D pens, and so forth, where kids will do the forensic activities that I mentioned earlier. And then there's just some artworks and photographs that were taken from each of our communities to represent our student communities. That's what I hit. Okay. All right. The next thing is our video story making exploratory. This is going to be a new offering we're going to have in the fall. We're going to start with 8th grade to pilot it. This was a passion that one of Mr. Gaddy's sons developed over COVID. There were a lot of positives that came out of COVID. Students picked up on hobbies that were outdoors. It got them outdoors. And one of his sons started a YouTube channel. Just decided to pick up his camera and just start YouTubing. And now he has a YouTube channel. And it's impacted him in a very positive way. He wanted us to have a class to teach kids how to use these electronics to videotape, to use drones, then to edit video, because it is, that is futuristic jobs. That's present jobs, actually. So I have a quick excerpt. I don't know if it'll work. This is from Charles Gaddy and Brown Gaddy. They're two twin boys, and you can see what we're kind of leaning towards. And this will be taught by our IT guy, Mr. Weiner. Do I have to hit the button? The Gaddy video. Thank you, if you can.
Watch one. So, yeah, stay tuned. All right, y'all, we got Charles and Connor. We got Connor and Charles. So, yeah. All right, guys, so when you're sword fishing, you have these lights here. And when they get water on them, like this, you just wet your finger and you put them on these areas right here. They start to blink like that. And since it's so dark down there in the water, you're all the way at the bottom. It's hard for them to see anything. So
That's good enough. I just wanted you to get a taste of what he got into. And what's fun about him is he'll come back and cook it. On the channel, he'll come back and cook his food that he eats. And right now, his mom said he's into trying to do taxidermy. He killed a bird and wanted to learn to taxidermy himself. He did it, legally, a duck. So we ran into each other at Harris Teeter, and she was looking for an X-Acto knife for him to do that. And so it's pretty cool. And they just feel there's more kids out there that might be interested in that. So it's something we're going to offer back when we get back in the fall. Next slide, please. This is one of our bigger projects. It is in the works on the left side. This is the company we're working with to try to get the material for aquaponics. If you don't know what aquaponics is, it is where you use fish to feed plants, to grow plants, and it's sort of like a cyclic thing where the fish waste feeds the plants and so forth. And there's a lot of science involved in it. I don't know all the science in it, but it is very interesting. And this is going to merge with STEM. Kelsey Oglesby, one of our STEM teachers, also got a grant for a gourd garden. And we have a great area in the back of our school, like a courtyard that a lot of people don't get to see. And that's where the aquaponics will go. This will also consist, well, there's an example. So they'll learn about, and this is a perfect project for this area. So they'll learn a lot about the aquatics as well as vegetation, like an agriculture, soils kind of thing. And then this is we're going to have a covered classroom. This is not it. We're kind of on hold. Apparently wood is very expensive right now, so we're kind of waiting on that. But these are things that are in the planning stages. So we want to thank the Gaddy Foundation for that. And we'll keep you updated as we grow the program. So for our highlights, for our staff, it's all about doing what it takes to meet student needs and to lead them to success. There were many challenges this year. One of the greatest challenges was bridging the gap between face-to-face and virtual learning, as well as fostering relationships with students. It may sound easy to accomplish. Why don't teachers just turn on the camera, have the kids turn on the camera? Students can listen in, but it's not that. There's so much more to it than that. You have to get students to sign on, turn on their cameras, engage in the lesson, let the teacher know that they're there. Imagine teaching to 20 avatars that are silent and trying to stay engaged day after day without visually seeing the students have those magical aha moments, seeing a light bulb turn on. These are the moments which teachers strive for. The video highlights you're about to see will highlight some of the initiatives that our teachers implemented in order to try to connect with our students, to try to get through these obstacles, to bring kids that were at home into the building so they didn't get disengaged or socially, emotionally disengaged, to feel apart. Which was not easy, and to get those who, when they came back face to face, to get back into the groove, which was more challenging than we thought. We were very surprised that when the students came back in the building, they were very quiet. They were very subdued, and it was very hard to get them back into a routine, to get them to talk. I've never been in a middle school where kids would not talk. The teacher's like, can you just talk out loud, interrupt me, do something? It became kind of comical. So we're getting them there. Today was a great first day. The kids were excited. It went really well. They can't wait to come back. Some of the kids that came out of virtual were saying they were so glad to be back and to see their friends. So with that, we'll go ahead and show the highlights. Thank you. Coming back out of remote learning with our hybrid plan with students, also having kids that are remaining virtual, we knew we had to come up with some pretty strategic initiatives that would keep all students engaged.
Our administrators came to us as teachers and they asked us, what do you think would work best with round 2? And we wanted consistency, and we also wanted extra time to remediate. This consistent schedule in the morning has helped us keep everybody logged in, because it's like my students said, it doesn't matter whether I'm in the building or whether I'm at home. I get to see Ms. Jackson, I get to see my classmates. We have a community online, and that's extremely important.
I like how they incorporated the fact that we get to every class every single day, and that it's not too long and not too short where they can keep our attention the entire class period.
In the afternoon, we have an extra time to check back with our kids that are in the building and to give them more. And that achievement gap that we saw with our students works when we have them in the building and we have extra time with them.
I like the schedule. Like Jackson said, we get to see every teacher and every class period, and then we get to go back a second time for a slightly longer amount of time if we need any extra help, and I think that's really good for us. That works well.
Another nice initiative that we have started here is our homework hotline. It is a Google Meet where kids can log on to either the ELA or the math Google Meet to get help. Those meets happen on the weeknights between 6 and 7 p.m. and we've got 2 teachers per evening that volunteer, one for the math help and one for the ELA. The really nice thing about it is that kids feel comfortable getting one-on-one help. What's really cool about it is that for me as a math teacher, I am able to build relationships with kids that I don't even teach. It's really helped me get to know, number 1, their curriculum, and number 2, what they're struggling with.
It was nice seeing my teachers because then I could talk to them like after class, and I wouldn't have to be with like lots of kids listening to my concerns, and it made me feel comfortable.
We actually wrote an initiative this year through Dare Education Foundation for microscopes that could be used to kind of bridge the gap between the kids that are live in the classroom and the kids that are virtual, and also give them the experience of seeing something that, you know, through a microscope you don't recognize as being that tiny, because typically in the classroom the kids are seeing things like cells in diagrams on a paper or in a textbook. And so we wrote this initiative so we could bring these microscopes into the classroom so that they could actually see these things in their teeny tiny typical fashion. So thank you again to Dare Education Foundation, because we came away with 2 beautiful, very interactive microscopes, and we really appreciate you.
Another step we took was core teachers identified students who were virtual that may need additional support. And so we reached out to parents and students via Google Voice and text message to help them and support them to have academic success.
When we came back from being virtual into the classroom, we have time called our Braves time, and it is a 40-minute enrichment period where kids are getting caught up. Some of our students are caught up. They did a great job over virtual. How do we fill that is what we call a genius hour, where kids are taking things that they're interested in that relate to the curriculum and working on it together with groups, but on their own. It's things that they're interested in. We're using 21st century skills with this. One of the things the kids like to do is 3D printing. They'll create things, they'll send them to me, and I'll print them out on our 3D printer. They're also working together on projects that they really have a huge interest in.
So during remote learning, it's really important for our middle schoolers to be able to have a sense of community, because that's a big part of a middle schooler's life, because their life evolves around their friends. And when we were remote, we felt like that was missing. So we came up with some opportunities to meet with these students virtually. And one of them was virtual lunches. So students would be sent a schedule for 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, and they would give a time slot and they would sign on, and we basically just chatted. It was a way for them to socialize with their friends as if they were in the school building. We also reached out to parents and families during this time. We did family gimkit nights. We really wanted to keep that school community even though we were virtual.
I'm just super proud of our staff. We have an amazing staff that has thought outside the box and came up with some initiatives that they thought would fill a need. These initiatives have been a success, and we think that we'll probably continue to use them and enhance them in the future.
If anybody have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions about anything
I
you saw.
love the homework hotline thing. You should keep that going.
Yes, we have some kids that asked, and it's funny because the little girl that you saw, she was the first one everybody thought of because she's never missed a night. And sometimes she's got on there and she's like, nope, I just wanted to say hi. And they would talk about knitting or something, you know, to that effect. So for her, it was something that she needed. It filled a need in her life. So it was worth it. And it was pretty amazing, as Ms. Geiger was saying, that it allowed her to see what 6th grade was doing, what 7th grade was doing. And along with that, we had a spreadsheet. So every night we worked off of a document. They would put who they worked with, what they helped them with, what was their struggles, so that the teacher that they have could see who got help that night and who was struggling in certain areas. And it also helped us see if we needed more math and less ELA, and do we need more of something else. So they liked it, and we were going to try to do that.
And congratulations on the Gaddy.
Thank you.
It looks like you guys are doing some really fantastic things.
Yes, we're trying to take advantage of it.
Can't wait to come see it.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for having me.
Okay, next up we have public comment. And Dr. Parker, do we have comment? And before we start, just want to read this statement real quick. The Dare County Board of Education welcomes the opportunity to hear from the public during its regularly scheduled meetings. This portion of the meeting is for the board as a whole to hear matters of interest or concern from the public. Public comment is not intended to be a dialogue for questions and answers or for impromptu board responses. The board may determine whether to provide information or responses to public comments if it is necessary or appropriate at a later time. Concerns regarding school personnel are usually most effectively addressed with the administration at the school or central office levels or through other existing board policies, and those alternatives are encouraged by the board. The board appreciates courteous and respectful presentations. According to policy 2340, each person or organization is granted 3 minutes for his or her presentation. Obscene, vulgar, indecent, abusive, threatening, or profane statements or statements reasonably perceived to be disruptive or imminently threatening to the orderly operation of the meeting shall not be permitted. Speakers are asked to begin by stating your full name and address. You may provide your address to the board secretary. A sign-up, we don't have a sign-up sheet because right now we're doing email. So we accepted email comments up until 4:30. Dr. Parker?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We do have one comment tonight, and that is from Regina Rowe, and her comment is this. Regarding summer school, can you tell us when we will have a schedule and options for availability and timing? Will it be required to attend all weeks, or will there be flexibility? I am asking since summer camps fill up quickly and do not offer refunds. Thank you. And that's the conclusion of the comments.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. I think we're going to be addressing those in the near future. Huh? Oh. Okay. I'll do that. Okay, next up we have the consent agenda, which includes the personnel consent agenda, minutes from the March 9th special meeting, the March 9th regular meeting, budget amendments, and a donation to Manio High School in honor of Coach William Creef, the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Grant, and 2020-2021 Summer Accountability Program Plan. Is there any discussion on that? I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Ms. Lawler, second by Mr. Tauber. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up, we have reports or items of information. Dr. Farley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've got two reports to present to the board this evening. The first is titled Funding to Support Learning Loss. So Congress has passed two stimulus bills and has directed $70 billion to K-12 public schools across the country through what is called ESSER. ESSER is the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Grant or Fund. And we've had one wave that came down in the fall, which was about $625,000. And it went into about 18 different directions, but primarily went to support technology, PPEs, sanitation supplies, materials, and our school nutrition program were the primary pots that were allotted. Since then, ESSER 2 has come down, and ESSER 2 for Dare County is going to mean about a $2.3 million allotment. The intent of ESSER is to impact student learning loss and the negative impacts from COVID. And formally, ESSER 2, the summary is as follows. To provide funding to prepare, prevent, and respond to COVID-19 with emphasis for use of funds to address learning loss. Prepare schools for reopening and testing, repairing, and upgrading projects to improve air quality in school buildings. And ESSER 2 funds must be obligated by September of 2022, or 2023, excuse me. With the intent of the funding to impact learning loss, student wellness, we have little interest in pursuing any avenues that have to do with that kind of last stanza about improving air quality in our school buildings and buying stuff. So if you recall in our October 1st Board of Education meeting, we actually covered in one of the 97 slides I had that evening, our high standards that are met by EPA standards in airflow in our buildings, and having new buildings certainly helps that. And if you recall, we have something called a MERV rating, which is a maximum or minimum efficiency rating system, and we have very high standards in our buildings. So while that is one of the possible avenues in funding, our sole focus is going to be on learning loss for students and emotional wellness. ESSER 3, so that funding source is $2.3 million. Again, we can obligate up till 2023. And this is all rapidly moving as we've gotten these notifications, these allocations just in the last 3 weeks or so. ESSER 3 is now the next wave of funding that's come down, And ESSER 3 is a significant amount of money, and that's going to be about $5.2 million. And those funds can run through 2024. And part of the intent with ESSER 3 is there's a mandatory 20% that has to go to learning loss. And again, you eventually see when we bring our strategic plan together that probably 80% of our plan will be towards learning loss. Formally, ESSER 3, the overview is as follows: to provide funding to prepare, prevent, and respond to COVID-19 with emphasis for use of fund to address learning loss through evidence-based interventions that respond to students' academic, social, and emotional needs. Also to prepare schools for reopening and testing, repairing, and upgrading projects to improve air quality in school buildings. And again, this funding runs through 2024. We have just learned in the last 4 or 5 days that we have to May 7th to submit initial application to the Department of Public Instruction. We've known for about 3 weeks that we were going to get a significant amount of funding, so we've been brainstorming and doing a data analysis and assessment. And we're going to start to formalize that process with both our central office leadership team and our school administrators and getting input as we start to build a plan. The May 7th is a hard deadline in that if we want to access funds from now to June 30th, we have to meet that May 7th deadline. If we do not, we would not be able to access funding until after July 1st. In some indicators that we've received, it could be well after July 1st. So it's in our best interest to move rather swiftly in putting together our application. The application, kind of like your public school budget, is always moving, as we talked last month about, it's a 12-month process. That application can always be amended, and we can shift and change strategies as needed. And part of the mandate with the release of the funding, once we receive the funding, we have 30 days then to post what our plan is going to be, get public comments, and then finalize the plan. So at that point in time, we would be in a process where we would take a formal plan to the board. So the May 7th is not a hard deadline, but it is a key date. And what's key for us in the initial wave of funding in trying to meet that deadline is we intend to, which we'll get to the next topic here in a little bit, use part of that funding to fund these summer program requirements. So some of the strategies, there's a wide array of different options that you can use this funding, but a general summary would be resources to meet school needs at the principal's discretion, activities to meet the unique needs of special populations, training, sanitation, educational technology, mental health support, summer and after-school programs. With having upwards of over $7 million, that is a significant amount of money. And, when we're talking about impacting learning loss, there are many studies that have been done across the United States which will point to the greatest impact on students is an effective teacher. So the greatest way that we can impact learning loss in Dare County schools is to increase either learning time or access to highly effective teachers. So our intent going into this process, and like everything that we do, we brainstorm, we talk amongst ourselves as a leadership team, we get school input, board input in building our plan, but we're going to have a heavy emphasis in people. And what that's going to mean is with part of the funding ending in 2023 and part of it in 2024, that does create not necessarily obstacles, but we have to plan accordingly, because let's say we create 20 new positions in the district, just throwing out a number. It may not be that high. And let's say we hire some additional social workers, or we bring in some instructional coaches, or we pay teachers to teach during their planning period to provide remediation, a myriad of strategies. Is if we hire teachers, they're, regardless of this funding source or not, coming in on a one-year contract. For the last 10 years or so, Dare County Schools typically hires between 25 and 35 new teachers each year, so there's going to be attrition, and that number is extremely low, because as you know, we're in the top 5 to 7 typically of the lowest teacher turnover rate in the state. It gives us an opportunity potentially to lower class size, to provide more remedial options for students. Our locks at this point would be, we have to address mental health and wellness needs in our community. We have to provide and should provide summer enrichment and opportunities, which of course are a mandate, and that'll be in topic number 2 I'll cover. Getting face-to-face time with your highest effective teachers, we can really move mountains. So as we plan, we're going to think about positions that can impact students. And again, our overarching theme is how do we most impact students, not buy things, and how we're going to decrease the achievement gap. That has been a significant outcome because of the pandemic. If we do hire a significant number of staff members going into the next year, then that gives we would be upfront with those staff members, as we are in all the things that we do, to say, this position is federally funded, and here's our timeline. And if you're a highly effective teacher, then we're going to find a way to keep you, okay? The trick will be if we front load with a lot of positions and we get to 2023 or 2024 and we can't sustain, then we have a problem. So that's why we have to be strategic in looking at the performance of new employees who may bring in, knowing that we'll have attrition and things are likely to work out. So the downside to the drive with bringing more people in is sustainability. But you're also talking about a 2 to 3 year period of time. And if we can have a significant impact in 2 years, we can close the learning gap significantly in that amount of time. And so we may face some challenges 2 or 3 years out, but kids need us, and they need us to impact their learning and advance it as quickly as we can in the shortest amount of time. So we're going to be very strategic. We will certainly take an equitable approach when we're looking at positions, and we're going to try to be as creative as possible. And again, coming back to the greatest impact we can have on kids. So we have a lot of work to do in a short amount of time, but we will certainly, our board and our leadership team and our administrators and our schools will do a lot of collaboration over the next 3 to 4 months and get into a place where we can all agree what's best as we move forward. This is a really good opportunity. Rich and I were talking earlier. I don't recall seeing any dollars like this in North Carolina since Race to the Top, and even then, that doesn't even touch what the allocations are across the country and certainly in Dare County. We can do a lot with that, and we need to do it right. So that's kind of a quick overview. A lot of work to do in the next couple of months. Be happy to take any questions.
This is probably, when you say doing after-school enrichment, that could possibly cause an issue for transportation. Would those funds be able to be used to run double bus runs if we had kids that were leaving right after school, kids that want to stay, and then we could run those kids home? Will the funds cover that?
Yes. So one of our concepts could be to have a tutoring program. Not everyone's going to want to stay after school for tutoring, and a lot of us go in different directions, whether it's athletics or a second after-school job, or you're a high flyer and you don't necessarily are interested. I think the key for us in an after-school program is narrow down the time frame. So maybe an hour and a half, 1 day a week, 2 days a week. Hire your highest effective teachers. Part of this funding also encourages you, as you also see in these summer learning programs, to pay teachers well. So we have some flexibility there, and get your highest performing teachers to stay with kids, okay? The other hook, to your point, is if we provide transportation, kids are much more likely to stay. So our intent, whether it's summer or after school, would be to provide transportation. Yes. Joe?
Dr. Farley, along those same lines, will food care be available too to help?
We certainly could provide snacks for kids after school, and there is actually a mandate in summer opportunities for breakfast, snack, and lunch. So yes, Our intent in these programs would be transportation and meals and as much as we can do because our kids need it. Jeff?
John, I have to commend you and your staff for being able to identify the issues here and putting in place programs that solve the issues that we're facing. And I just think it's tremendous effort on your part and the staff's part to work collaboratively to get us to the point where our students are back on track.
Sure.
So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else have any other questions?
Okay, thank you. The second item, and thank you for adding this, the General Assembly just passed House Bill 12 last week, so this is a late agenda item, but it's titled the School Extension Learning Recovery and Enrichment Program, and we talked at our last board meeting informally. There's been a lot of talk about a mandate for summer programs, and we, of course, as the board knows, did a survey about 8 weeks ago in trying to gauge staff and student and parent interest in summer opportunities. So this became law, as I said, last week on the 9th. The focus in the mandate is on learning loss in line with ESSER and negative impacts from the pandemic. Each district shall, keyword shall, offer a school extension, recovery, and enrichment program. And we have to identify and prioritize at-risk students. So we've done that, we do that all the time. Part of our measurements and data certainly will look at student performance, student attendance, truancy. There's probably 7 or 8 different categories as we prioritize at-risk students. Other students could attend the summer program options, but we have to give priority to the at-risk students first, and then if there's capacity following that, then we could open up programs to other students who want to participate. We have to submit the plan 30 days prior to the end of the school year, and we're just getting this, so we've got a lot of work to do. So that means probably about May 9th is our deadline to submit, but as we've spoken before, we've been planning for summer program for about 4 months, and I appreciate our parent who made the public comments, wanting to get the dates, and so we've actually just been waiting for the state to make a decision or the General Assembly to make a decision so that we could start rolling. So Kelly Flora and Johanna Parker have been working on getting a formal registration out to staff, and I would say in the next week to 10 days, we'll get all this information out to parents. And of course, the board has approved this evening in the consent agenda our first wave of summer, which is the 2 weeks once school is out, where we're doing credit recovery and EOG work and so on and so forth. So that first 2 weeks, which is actual 8 instructional days, goes towards the requirements, which we'll get to in a moment. So the components are 150 hours or 30 days, 150 hours or 30 days total during the summer, and that would begin after our last school day, I believe, is June 10th, 9th. Thank you, Ms. Kitzel. We must serve meals and provide transportation, yay. They're very specific in how you use your time, which is good. So lunch, transitions, and physical activities that have to be provided do not count towards your instructional time. We cannot provide these programs on Saturdays, and there is a physical activity requirement, and that certainly could be physical education, recreation, recess, so on and so forth. So for K-3, the focus is to be on reading, math, and third grade science. The reading camps that we've had, K-2, for the last several years are part of this program, and Kelly Flores led that up previously, Ms. Kinsel prior to that, and typically we've had 150 to 200 kids who have participated in our reading camp, so this is part of that. Or maybe more. More. Ms. Kinsel says more. An enrichment activity is also included for K-3 students. Next, in grades 4 through 8, the requirements are to provide reading, math, and science and enrichment. And then in 9-12, it looks a little bit different. Everything is supposed to be in person unless it's North Carolina virtual public schools. And the instruction is in EOC subjects, credit recovery, or elective courses. So some other details. K students who attend are exempt from being retained. So if a kindergarten student attends the summer program, then they automatically do not have to be retained. Students who are in grades 1 through 12 who could be potentially retained can be reassessed for progress by the principal as you move through the summer. And just frankly, we're not big advocates on retaining children, and there's data that supports anyone past kindergarten and first grade who's retained beyond first grade typically does not do well academically up through high school, and certainly there are high dropout rates for anyone who's been retained more than once. And there's a lot of data that supports that. Social emotional learning support is to be provided in our programs. So a few interesting twists in staff world. So staff enter into temporary contracts, and if my interpretation is right, Rich, the staff do not get any credit for retirement or accrued leave balances, correct? Thank you. Then some twists with staff. So there's $1,200 bonus awards for some categories for teachers who have previously received different awards in reading measures in particular, or national boards. So as we start to look at staff and funding, we're going to have to build these required bonuses in. So a national board teacher in this example would get a $1,200 bonus for teaching. There's also, this is creative, I like it, $150 bonus for any third grade teacher who has a student who enters in the program who is below proficiency level in reading and then is proficient by the end of the program. So that is incentive-based each student.
I think that's per student. That's not
per student.
teacher.
Yeah, that's right. Not per teacher, per student. So if you have a highly effective teacher who gets 10 kids and moves them all, which is a heavy lift, then that's $1,500. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And they also, in some of the verbiage, certainly promote paying teachers as much as you can. And by the way, all this funding, there's not additional funding coming down for this. This is all related to our ESSER funds, our at-risk funds, and reading camp, which has been cut. We have about a third of what we traditionally get. Last couple of details. The state is creating grade level assessments, K-12, that we're to give. And then there are reporting mandates. So we have to report on the number of students who attend, success measures. This goes to the Department of Public Instruction, and then formally, I believe maybe next January, the General Assembly actually gets a report on these, all these different measures and data. So that's a quick summary of what it looks like. Again, we've been planning for some time. Sometimes it's hard to get families, great question or comment here. We have competing interests with recreational camps and other opportunities in summer vacations. We have staff that work 2 jobs. So we intend to, because we have the ability, pay teachers a little bit more than we might in traditional years to try to get them, particularly our most effective teachers, to work in the program. And we will be getting information out to parents on dates. Right now, conceptually, as the board knows, we're the first 2 weeks after school in June, and then we're looking at late July to the start of the school year, maybe August 1st and on, and we're going to have to do our math on the instructional hours and the days requirements to meet those. So information coming out to parents soon, and again, we'll be registering staff within the week. Questions, comments?
Dr. Farley, one quick question, and I may have heard this incorrectly, but I thought I heard you say with the K through 3 with the summer reading program, the numbers were somewhere between 150 and 200?
Yeah, that was probably a bad guess, Frank.
Okay.
Kelly, what? Depends on location. Or is it more like 400? $275.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm pretty good on most of my numbers, but that one's not my wheelhouse.
Okay. I feel better now.
Yeah.
But in that mix, was that a mixture of kids that needed additional help and kids that wanted to improve?
Go ahead, Kelly. This is Kelly Flora, our Director of Elementary Ed. She leads the program, as you know.
Last year, there were different parameters around our summer programming because of COVID. So what we did was we opened up the program to all students, which gave everybody an opportunity to come out for summer programming. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I do. Will this program be voluntary or mandatory?
It cannot be mandatory. It's voluntary only. And we will try to recruit and encourage to our best of our ability. And with having a couple of different options, that gives some more, latitude to families. And we have even, and we've got to finalize our plan, but we've talked conceptually, but we have to meet these requirements now. So our initial concept was about a 4-hour day that was instructional based, breakfast, instruction, reading, math, lunch, and then maybe something that was more enrichment based in the afternoon, and have an option for staff to teach any instructional component or the enrichment component. This is now putting a little more emphasis into the instructional. So, but we're also mindful it's summer, and we can't teach from bell to bell between 8 and 3, and thankfully there are some enrichment requirements and athletic activity requirements and so on. But we can't mandate summer attendance by anyone, which, if we had our druthers, we'd love to have every at-risk kid. But those are individual family decisions, and so the good news is we can offer a high-quality program, and we hope that families take advantage of it, and we'll certainly try to promote it to the best of our ability. Sure.
Anybody else? Okay. We do not have any unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business. First item is approval of reopening the community use of facilities. Dr. Farley?
Thank you. So as the board knows, when the pandemic hit, we suspended use of our facilities. We do, in Dare County, have heavy use of our facilities by the community, whether it be recreation or churches or events. We've got almost in every single school every weekend there is some community use of our buildings, and we've held opening up the process at bay because the capacity restrictions have been so low for some time. And then with the last executive order, I think it was 204 by the governor, that gave us an opportunity to get to 50% capacity in our facilities, which has kind of been our mark, we've thought internally in talking through this, where we could open up access again to our facilities for community use. We do have a board policy on community facility use. We have an application, and we have a process where anyone can go to the school, fill out our required form, and then it gets filtered from the principal up to the facilities director and sometimes the superintendent. Our recommendation is to open up facilities again with the 50% current capacity. And you'll notice in the recommendation that I did not state the 50% because that then gives us the latitude. If things move to 75% by mid-May, then we have the latitude to do so. We're recommending May 1st so that we've got a couple of weeks, if the board approves this recommendation, to make some adjustments in the requirements that have to do with heavier responsibilities in sanitizing the buildings and the facility use. And that would give us a little bit of time to work through that process, amend our regulation if needed, and then maybe even make some adjustments on the cost for facilities, but that certainly will not be significant. But we want to make sure that we have high standards to begin with, but we've got to put these additional steps in place, and then also put together the summary of what you can do. Your average community organization may not know all the different requirements that we have in schools, and with the capacity and what it means in social distancing and so on and so forth. So we feel like that'll give Mr. Gerganis and I a couple of weeks to firm that up, and I think that we've got several different organizations in the community that would be excited about this move if the board wants to go in this direction. So happy to take any questions or comments.
Anybody have any discussion?
Dr. Farley, for clarification, the recommendation says superintendent recommends the board approve reopening community use of facilities at the current state mandated capacity limit. You mean at the now current or at whatever the then current?
The state mandated, so maybe I should strike the word current.
If that's what the intent
Yes.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying at the time that the request is made, whatever that mandate is
Yes.
at the time the request is made?
Right, because
So if the governor opens it up more 2 weeks from now, he doesn't have to get our permission again. He can.
So if you strike the word current from the recommendation, that'll meet your intent.
Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion? I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move we approve the reopening of community use of facilities at the state mandated capacity.
A motion by Ms. Bothwell,
I'll second.
a second by Mr. Woody. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, next up we have the Board Facility Naming Committee recommendation.
So thank you, Madam Chair. So the board has a facility naming committee. Ms. Bothwell, Mr. Tauber, and Mr. Hester serve. Mr. Hester is the chairman of our group, and Ms. Kinsel and Mr. Gurganis and I also participate. So following Board Policy 9300, the committee is recommending this evening that the renovated Cape Hatteras Secondary School soccer field, or excuse me, school field house, not soccer, field house, be named after former employee Scott Day. Scott Day was an outstanding teacher. He was a baseball coach and athletic director, beloved, and he had a lot of support from several different community members in this recommendation. And be happy if Mr. Hester, who chairs the committee, would like to add anything to our summary.
I would just like to say it was impressive to see how much impact that one individual can have. Based on the input that we received, both within the school walls and outside the school walls, this man, Mr. Scott Day, left a lasting impression and something that we should all strive to embrace.
I will add that I perhaps knew Mr. Day, and he was an amazing man, and he's sorely missed. He's a constant reminder to our students and staff of exactly what kind of person you want in your schools and around your children, and he was an amazing person. So,
Madam Chair, may I say that, given that that's your district, that if you'd like to make the motion,
am I allowed to make a motion?
Sure.
Am I allowed to make a motion?
I didn't hear that. What was that?
Am I allowed to make a motion as chair?
Yes.
Okay. Then, thank you, Joe. I move the naming of the, we approve the naming of the Cape Hatteras Secondary School Field House after former employee Scott Day.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Balance, second by Mr. Hester and Mr. Tauber. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was any discussion before I break out in tears?
Still aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, motion carries. Okay, moving on. Next up, we have the approval of the Dare County Schools Capital Improvement Plan for fiscal years 2021-22 through 2025-26. Candy Tilly?
So I'll pinch hit for Mr. Gurganis, and Candy can jump in as needed. So as you know, at our last Board of Education meeting and our budget workshop, Mr. Gurganis did a very in-depth presentation on the capital improvement plan. Again, another committee that we have with Mr. Hester, Mr. Tauber, and Mr. Twitty. Mr. Tauber chairs our CIP committee, and these are projects that are over $50,000, and Mr. Gurganis highlighted about 15 different projects for the next school year, and we actually have a very comprehensive 5-year plan. We get requests from the school. Mr. Gurganis and his maintenance team build 5 years out, and we went through this in depth in our last budget workshop, and we're looking for formal approval of the plan tonight. And then at our May 11th meeting, the board will be asked to approve the entire public school budget. So if you have to take any questions the board may have on the CIP plan.
Well, I'd like to comment and thank a number of people. I'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners for giving us the proceeds. I'd like to thank John, you and your staff, especially Russ and Candy, for what they did in terms of prioritizing things that needed to be dealt with in terms of Dare County. And just greatly appreciate the work that was done to get us to this point where we're actually going to be doing this work to improve the school system. So
I appreciate it. We have an excellent facilities director, and he makes Kenny and my job much easier. His level of expertise and his whole team is extremely high. And one of the neat things about this particular CIP is with approval from the county, we've got $180,000 that's going to go towards playground equipment at schools. And so then that directly, a lot of times we're doing chillers and boilers and roofs in this plan, but that will be some good news for a couple of our elementary schools. And in fact, all 5 of our elementary schools made requests, and we prioritized them over 5 years. We actually went out and looked at all the different playgrounds, and so we feel like we can, in 3 years' time, address every single school's need. So appreciate it. Russ is top-notch.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that he, the way Russ goes about trying to make sure that everything, he's so meticulous in the way he makes sure everything is taken care of, that we are very fortunate to have him on our staff to watch over this. And whenever there's something that's not right, he always goes above and beyond to figure out a way to make it right. So we are very lucky to have such a competent.
Thank you. Motion to turn on my mic. Madam Chair, I move we approve the Dare County Schools Capital Improvement Plan for 2021, 2022 through 2025, 2026 as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Tauber. Second by Ms. Bothwell. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. You have a CIP plan.
Thank you.
With that, looks like we're out of business, but Margaret, did you want to?
I just wanted to recognize the League of Women. They usually present this book to us every year, and because of the way things are, they were not able to be here today. And I think you can pick these up at the libraries and in the schools, and they are a great resource for the county if you need to know anything. So thank you for the League. They put this out very, very comprehensively every year. And hopefully next year you'll be here in person to give it to us.
Is there anything else anybody would like to add?
Madam, I move we adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Lawler, second by Ms. Bothwell. Or any further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, we adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. Such enthusiasm. Any opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for tuning in.